Welcome back, Silver Bull fans. Welcome back to Silver Bull channel. Well, the question of gun control has come up in the US again. As if gun control would be some universal panacea for all society's ills. I've titled this as Gun Control in the US, the problem. The fact of the matter is, I see a number of problems with trying to get gun control in the US. Obviously, the first one's it's against the Constitution. The Constitution is pretty clear that the United States citizens have the right to bear and keep arms. Founding fathers did that for a very simple reason, to avoid tyranny. Pisses me off to watch CNN and see Piers Morgan crapping on about gun control in his British accent. I'm thinking, yeah, well, if the Americans had listened to a British twat back in 1776, they wouldn't have had their independence, would they? So I find it ironic that here's this British person busy telling them they need gun control in America. The other thing is, I don't think it would work. I really don't think it would work in America. One, there's too many guns. There's something like 270 million guns in America. Firearms. In Australia, they spent $500,000 to buy back about 600,000 guns. All right, so nearly $1,000 a weapon. All right, and destroyed most of them. To do the same in America, you're looking at $270 billion in a country that's already broke. You know. So, I just don't think a mass gun buyback in America is going to achieve much. The other thing, of course, in Australia, we had the gun buyback and it hasn't stopped all gun crime. Yeah, we haven't had a mass massacre since then that I know of, anyhow. But we still have, like in the western suburbs of Sydney, you still have drive-by shootings. Your criminals still have access to guns. You still have armed robberies, and people are still dying of various things. Knives are, you can't make knives illegal. How else are you going to chop up things in your kitchen? You need knives. They're a very useful thing. They're a sensible thing. Unfortunately, idiot people use them for criminal and idiot purposes, and that's tragic. They say, oh, you take guns and suicide by guns goes down. Yeah, but at the same time, suicide by hanging goes up. So gun control doesn't get rid of suicide problems. The other problem you have in America is obviously there's a large percentage of the population that is basically sworn if you take their guns off them, they will see that as the last act of a totalitarian government, and you will have a civil war. There are militia units and lots of other things in the US, and they're dead serious when they say, you come take my gun over my dead body. The simple fact of the matter is, you're just not going to be able to, do it without a civil war. And America's last civil war, which, if you add all the American deaths and other wars together, you still don't get to the number that died in the last Civil War. Yes, it's tragic. Yes, it's just wrong that we've had, especially children, 20 children die in a US school shooting recently in Connecticut. But the simple fact of the matter is, you're talking about millions when you have a civil war, all right? Millions dying. So, the other thing, which I think, it's a bit of a joke, a bit of a sick joke. They get so excited about 20 children dying because of some nutter in the US. How many children died in Afghanistan and Iraq? How many children have died due to these drones? The Americans have bombed that. How about before we have gun control in the US, we have control of US arms overseas? That might be a better place to start. Let's control what the US does with its guns outside of America. You know? That might be a better place to start. We might save more lives around the world if we start there before we start in the US. The other thing is, gun control doesn't necessarily mean you'll stop lots of deaths. Take a country like South Africa. It has gun control. Unfortunately, their gun control, it takes like 2 years to get a gun license and stuff like that, and only 2% of black people get approved, even though it's now a black-run government. But you still have a murder rate of 20,000 a year. Just goes to prove, what has gun control achieved there? Nothing. What happened in the UK recently when they had the riots? You know? Citizens who had no way of defending themselves have gone out to buy baseball bats. They've sold out of baseball bats in the sports stores because people recognised they had a fundamental right to defend themselves. Now, personally, I believe it's a personal choice. You know, some people have firearms in their house and some don't. Some don't because it's proven you're more likely to have a family member killed than you are to shoot an intruder who's threatening your family. And there's certainly lots of other ways to dispose of intruders other than just firearms. But, you know, gun control in the US, what's the problem? The problem is it just won't work. They can't control drugs in the US, the drugs coming across the borders. You know, they haven't been able to control that. Something that kills people, you know, narcotics that end up sending people crazy, speed, amphetamines, all that sort of garbage people people are so stupid to take, it destroys their lives. You know, they can't control that. How are they going to control guns? Their borders are obviously so porous. You don't think guns are just pouring from Mexico to supply all the criminals? You know, it's just. You could buy back the guns from Americans, and all you'd end up having is guns flowing across the border. It'd become the new great production. It would be the first thing you'd want to do is if they made guns illegal in the US or tried to, you know, seriously curtail what type of guns are out there, was you'd want to buy a gun factory in South America because you'd make a killing selling illegal guns. You'd be making as much profit as they do with drugs. That's just the way I see it, as a problem that can't just be solved by, you know, as has been done in other countries. You have a culture in the US where firearms were part of their pioneer heritage, where there's a strong hunting culture. You know, they're hunting moose, elk. These aren't things that you normally take out with something small. You normally need a decent sized weapon to do so. So, you know, I see it more has to do with the mentality and the mental health of the community in general than it does with gun laws. I know Obama and other ones of his socialist cronies are itching to get gun control. But, you know, I just don't see how that'll work anyhow. You send hundreds of thousands of troops overseas every year, teach them how to be experts in guns and shoot straight and all the rest of it, and then they come home angry and pissed off and either have high rates of suicide amongst themselves or, you know, you've got trained experts. There's nowhere to get a gun from. You know, you want to start gun control in America, let's start it by controlling America's guns outside America. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of children in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places in the world that would be more than happy to have a bit of gun control outside America. Anyhow, that's my view. Feel free to put your comments below. Obviously, I don't wish to offend anyone who's involved in any tragedy. Yes, it is always tragic when someone dies in uncertain circumstances or unnecessary circumstances, whether it be a car accident on the road, whether it be someone punched at a nightclub and knocked out, you know, the head hits the concrete and they die. Any unneeded death is a tragedy. And our hearts go out to parents not only in Connecticut, but in Iraq, in Syria at the moment with their civil war. There's lots of children dying there as well. That's equally tragic for those parents. Um, so, to me, I just think you could try gun control in America, but I just don't believe it would work. One, you're fighting against the Constitution. Two, they're porous borders. Three, you've got a culture that you'd have to change and a mindset. Four, there's other weapons that you can use if you have to. There's, there's a whole bunch of other things there that you need to address as well. It's not just one single issue. Passing a new law isn't always going to solve a problem. In fact, normally the more laws we pass, the more bureaucracy we have and the more problems we have. That's my thoughts from someone who's not an American, from the other side of the world. Uh, you know, for anyone who owns a firearm in the US, always remember it's a sacred responsibility, in my opinion, if you own a weapon, to only use it for good purposes. Um, you know, anyone who uses a firearm for a corrupt person, whether it's, is whether it's a firearm or whatever, they're going to find something to do their evil aims. And what we need to address is dealing with evil people. All right, no matter what tools they choose to use, you need to address dealing with evil people. And why are we breeding a society of evil people? Directionless people, people who turn to narcotics or other things because they can't find fulfillment in life. Why in the America, which is one of the largest consumerist societies in the world, are there so many dissatisfied people? I think there's more serious things we need to look at inside ourselves as human beings to answer this question better than just go running for a new law. And yeah, that's my opinion. And just to show you, not everyone who has a Anglo-Saxon heritage or a British heritage or whatever else you want to call it agrees with Piers Morgan. Silver Bull Channel out.